So Dan's up. Dan says, hey, gents, I have a question regarding the MasterMind. Trello boards for processes you use in your business. Are these accessible to MasterMind members? If so, I am in. If not, how can I talk you into getting those? Well, to be honest, no, they're not available, Dan. When we first launched, I think it was Syndication Academy. Originally, it was called IFTTT SEO Academy. We tried that route because remember, I trained all my virtual assistants on the processes of how to build networks, which you guys know is an intricate process. But I built all the process docs and then converted them all into Trello boards, specifically so that it would make it so much easier to train builders at scale, right? And that was an enormous amount of work, guys. It took me 4 months of almost 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. I'm not kidding, to do that. It was an enormous amount of work. But we have our SERP space building team, our builder team. Some of those builders have been with me for 5 years now, and we've got a team that have all been trained from that exact same process. In fact, that's what the whole training was developed around, the Syndication Academy training, from the processes that I developed for my virtual assistants. The reason I mention that is because when we first launched IFTTT SEO Academy at the time, one of the upgrades was the outsourcing, or maybe that was MasterMind, I don't remember, but we had what we called an outsourcer training portal, which was where I had all my Trello boards that I gave access to the members. I think that was MasterMind, not IFTTT SEO Academy. It was an upgrade. Yeah. But yeah, what happened was, the problem was a couple things. Number one, anytime a board had to be edited, first of all, like, people would come in and they were supposed to, I was supposed to add them. It's very difficult to add people to boards, because if you add them to the board, then they can literally change the boards. And at least years ago, several years ago when we did this, there was a problem with people would come in and instead of making a copy of the board and then importing it into their own account and then saving a template copy, and so making a copy of one that you would keep as a template and then using the others, people would just start making changes and actually using the public board that they were supposed to just make a copy of. And so it created a ton of work for me to have to keep going back in and rearranging the board, putting it back to its original state. It was a pain in the ass. Finally, I said, that's enough. I'm done. I'm sorry, guys. You guys can't follow instructions, so I'm no longer going to give out. So we discontinued that. The other part of this, though, besides the fact that, Dan, I'm sure you could follow instructions, so that might not be an issue. But the other part of that is, what I found is, if I'm training virtual assistants for a very specific task, and that's going to be their main job duty or something that they're going to repeat over and over and over again, something that doesn't change often, then I will create Trello boards for that. But I have actually reverted most of my process documentation now back to just Google Drive, Google Docs, and the reason why is because they're much more easy, at least for my business. I don't know about my partners, but for me, most of my process docs are living, breathing documents that are constantly being edited and refined. And it's much more work to do that in Trello boards than it was to just keep a process doc in Google Doc form that I can go in and edit, or my virtual assistants, my employees, my workers can go in and make comments on and all that kind of stuff. And so I've really reverted back to just using YouTube for training videos, screencast videos. I upload to YouTube, and then I create process docs in Google Docs, where I always start, step one is always training video. I drop the URL, and then it's the step-by-step process and outline format in Google Docs. And so I've actually stopped using Trello, guys, unless, like I said, it's for something very specific, in which case that isn't going to change very often. But the processes that I've been developing for, like, prospecting, for example, I've built my team now, and that's handling the prospecting, and we've got the sales, and we've got people scraping lists and all that. All of that is all now held in Drive, because we're constantly finding ways to make the process more efficient, and it just takes too much time to change it all out in Trello. It's easier to edit inside of Drive. So that said, Dan, yes, in the MasterMind, I've been sharing a lot of my processes as far as the prospecting module and stuff like that. If there's something specific that you would want, you'd have to contact one of us or contact us at support. Or if you're in the MasterMind, you could just post about it in the group, and we could certainly, potentially give you process docs about stuff. But I'm not going to go out and create process docs for stuff that we do that hasn't already been created just to share. And a lot of the stuff that we do have, or that I have for my own business, is like It's proprietary in that it's stuff that are specific to my business that really wouldn't make sense to share anyway. So I would have to kind of make the process docs for my own business more generic for them to be able to fit for them to be usable for a lot of you. And so that's, again, why I said it's, in my opinion, Dan, the best thing to do is, which I know that you said in your comment right here, is that you're running into trouble. You're having a hard time keeping ahead of your virtual assistants. I know it's a pain in the ass, man. But that's why
I'll hop in. I think you've talked about the process stuff. And Dan, if you join the mastermind, like you said, we're happy to talk you through. There's a bunch of different ways to do this. But I actually had this exact question from a different angle come from a mastermind I'm in. And they said, I'm really scared about making my first couple of hires. And I think that that's a common pain point because a lot of people, it's good, by all means, hire someone because a lot of this is trial by fire. But I think, Dan, one of the problems here is it sounds like you've got the problem. You've got the person, but the in-between hasn't been bridged. And so you're feeling that pain where beforehand, you generally, if you haven't built the process docs before you got the person. And now you're realizing that you have to run your business, provide the services and train someone and do the processes. So the lesson to learn here that I learned too, working with one of my first VAs was knowing ahead of time what it is you want them to do and starting to lay that out and either hiring them with the clear goal that they're going to write their own process docs off of like videos or something, or that you're going to lay out the process for them ahead of time or something in between. Because what are you saying here? You're struggling to put together boards while keeping your current customers service. Definitely. So maybe, you work out something in between. If you have someone who can write decent English, then maybe you have them and you say, hey, look, I'm going to pay you to watch the videos. And as you do it, write down the list. And then you can go through and maybe edit that and make it nicer.
Yep. And that's great advice. And that's, kind of what we teach in Outsource Kingpin is that, you can hire somebody to create the process docs for you as long as you record the training video. And so that's something you can outsource the process docs is my point, guys. And that's a great way to do it because that's where, I still do a lot of my own process docs just because typically when it's something comes up that we need a process for. So I just go ahead and draft the process doc myself as I'm going through the steps to do whatever needs to be done. And that way it's done. I do it one time and that's the last damn time I have to do it, right? Because then I immediately just hand it off to a VA. But what I would also suggest, Dan, is to get ahead of this is try to find tasks that are repetitive in your business, create process docs for those first so that you can reduce your workload. The sooner you can unload repetitive tasks that you do to your VAs, then that's going to free up that time that you have to do over those tasks that you have to do over and over and over again, right? That's going to free that time up to allow you to develop even more process docs for maybe some more of the complex processes or functions of your business, right? So again, try to get all the menial stuff or the repetitive tasks outsourced first, delegated first, so that you can work on the more complex process docs for the higher level stuff. Okay. But you guys, honestly, guys, like one of the biggest parts, remember, if you're trying to move from being self-employed to business owner, these are the kinds of things you have to do. But the idea is that, it's a lot of work. Like, for example, syndication networks, guys, like I said, it took me 4 months to create the process docs, the entire process for to train virtual assistants how to do it. But it took me 4 months, and it's been like 5 years since I've had to build a syndicate. I've built a few syndication networks since then, but it's really been 5 years since I've had to create or build a syndication network myself because I've trained an army of builders to do it for me, if that makes sense. All from 4 months worth of work that I put in several years ago. Well, I don't know if it's been 5 years, but like 3 or 4 years ago, if that makes sense. So again, that kind of, you put the work in now and it's going to free you up in the future for, so you don't have to do that shit anymore.
Yeah.
Great.
If I can real quick add that the skill sets and the abilities that you have right now and that have taken you to where you're at right now, Dan, will not take you from where you're at to where you want to be, So there's a lot of re-education. There's a lot of skill set that you need to learn that all of us needed to learn, like how to set up processes, how to coach teams, how to manage teams and whatnot, that can take you to the next level. That's why one of the reasons why I'm so excited about Pofu Live, because we're kind of sharing with you the skill set that you need to have in order to run a team, because setting up processes is a skill set that you need to learn, right? It was, ranking websites at some point or ranking videos at some other point, but then it becomes as managing people and setting up processes. So that's super interesting to learn as well.